Hello, everybody. Just before we get started with the show, I wanted to let you know that the Red Devil's Den podcast, in addition to YouTube, can now be found on Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, JioSaavn, Podbean, and Spreaker, with support for Google and Apple Podcasts coming soon. If you want to follow us on any of these platforms, please go ahead and visit our Twitter page at The Red Devil's Den, where the pinned tweet has links to our show page on all of these platforms. Thank you. Now, on with the show.
Hello, welcome back to the Red Devil's Den podcast, the podcast we talk all things Manchester United. And we've got obviously two games to talk about. So first of all, we're going to go through Spurs game, and we're going to obviously preview Granada midweek. So first of all, Josh, what were your thoughts on Spurs game?
Well, very, 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 very happy after that game. There's nothing like beating Jose Mourinho. And I'm not just saying that because he was our manager, but because every game we've had against him, it's always been frustrating, horrible, except from probably the Inter Milan era when we beat them in the Champions League, when we were just a far superior team. But after that first half decision, I thought it was just going to be one of those games again against Mourinho. So I did a bit of research. Scholes versus Porto was given offside, even though he wasn't offside. I'm showing the camera a picture of Scholes versus Porto. Then there was Quinton Fortune, who should have had a penalty in the League Cup semi-final against Chelsea. I was reading the article and everyone was saying it was harsh. In the FA Cup final in 2007, the ball passed the line when Giggs tapped it in, and he was fouled by John Obi Mikel. He was pushed into Peter Cech. Should have had a penalty there before Drogba scored. Nani red card versus Real Madrid. Who was the manager there? Jose Mourinho. Terry fouls Radamel Falcao. This was when we were chasing the top four, and I think LVG said he could see the title and we go for it. I remember him saying in his little speech after the season. Martial sent off at the beginning of the season, and then the disallowed goal the other day. So we have a history of this with Jose Mourinho. We constantly get bad refereeing decisions. But you know what? In that second half, we were fantastic. We were absolutely brilliant to a man. I thought Wan-Bissaka and Paul Pogba were excellent. I thought Cavani was just the perfect striker. He showed Kane levels, no offence to Harry Kane. Greenwood's ball was sensational. The passing for Fred's goal. Fred covered every blade of grass. I was just so happy and relieved at full time. So happy.
Yeah, spot on. I think first half was not near as good as the second half. But obviously, overall performance was brilliant. I mean, some great performances all around. So, Dan, do you want to give us your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that Josh just said. I think the last couple of weeks have been incredibly frustrating from a Manchester United point of view. I think we've really struggled to score goals. I think most of the games, the performances have been okay. They've been sort of just good enough. Good enough to get the result, but obviously you can sort of forgive that given the fixtures this season. And like Josh said, after that decision, and then they scored immediately after. I'm seeing headlines of Tottenham 1, Manchester United 0. I thought the second half was going to be a total shutout. He was going to have 10 men behind the ball, and we were not going to get anything basically. So I think the performance yesterday, it was sort of everything that's been lacking in the last couple of weeks. We were aggressive, we were creative. We had shots on target. It was just brilliant. It was really entertaining to watch, and I think it was just the second half of that game was Manchester United. If you understand what I'm saying, it just displayed everything that this club's about. It's about attacking football. It's about desire. It's about aggression. It's about everything, and it's about beating the shit out of Jose fucking Mourinho. Okay.
Definitely. United Apollo, Any thoughts? Anything to add?
Just really pleased, to be honest. I think we showed great character to bounce back after the circumstances, and we were brilliant in the second half. That's one of the best halves of football we've played for a little while. So just really pleased. We're now 7 points clear of third. Should if we let second place slip from here, we'll all be really disappointed. So yeah, we should end up second, and that will obviously build on what we achieved last season.
Yeah, I mean, I said at the start of the season, I think you said as well, a second place finish, or at least 10 points more in the Premier League, which is probably going to get us to second, which you have. That would be a successful Premier League season. And then if we can get a trophy as well, which now the only choice for a trophy is the Europa League, if we can get that as well, then I think that'll be a really, really successful season. But yeah, Vin, what were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I could sum it up in 5 words, really. Revenge taken and justice served. I mean, if we had to sum it up, that would be the line, because the first half, the performance wasn't that bad, I feel, but it was shadowed by the VAR, the refereeing controversy, and then Son ending up scoring the goal for them. So it was shadowed by that, but I feel the performance wasn't that bad. Early on, Rashford had an opportunity, saved by Lloris. And it's not like we were sitting back in our own half. We were sort of in their half as well. And then obviously a great play between Scott, Bruno, Paul and Cavani. Unfortunately, that decision, it wasn't entirely VAR's fault, because what the VAR said to the referee was, hey, this is a situation, we're not sure about it, so you go and take a look at it. So the referee went to the monitor, he took a decision, it was his call, and it just shows, it's another example of how trash the level of refereeing is in our country, really, in this league. Because, again, it's yet another example. There were a couple of other examples in other games where it was either the VAR's fault or the referee's fault. So, again, it's just highlights some of the rules that we need to really work on in terms of the offside rule, deciding which is a foul, which isn't a foul, the delay, the delayed call for the referee to stop play. I mean, if you see a foul, call it then and there. Just don't wait for the play to end and see what happens and then take a decision, because that's unfair on the team who ends up scoring a goal. So, yeah, that was just a bitter pill to swallow in the first half. But then the second half, I think we were fantastic. Just came out all guns blazing, showed character, composure, patience. Pogba was brilliant. Cavani, I think this was one of his best performances this season. I think I would say after the Southampton game, where he came on at halftime, changed the game for us. So I think you could say it's on level in terms if you have to rank those 2 performances, I think they would be level. Henderson as well, 2 great saves, second half, Son and Kane. Then Cavani again, rescuing the ball away with that header, just towards the end. And then Greenwood comes on. Turns out to be an impactful sub. Underrated performer, I think, would be Fred for me, because he not only did he get the goal, but he also was that engine in the midfield room that he always has been this season. And yeah, just another typical Fred performance, which capped it off with a nice goal. And Ole got it spot on, I would say, management-wise in game. Got the subs right, managed the team right at halftime, said the right words, motivated in the right manner. And yeah, it was nice to see Jose's downfall again.
I believe that leaves me giving my opinion on the match as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So for me, as Vin already touched on, the VAR incident was a little bit ridiculous. The referee, in my opinion, caved to the pressure of Jose Mourinho and the media. Jose Mourinho, before this match and constantly throughout the season, has said that we get favorable refereeing decisions. And the referee saw a pivotal moment where it would have been a goal scored. And he completely shot the bed. He said, okay, you know what? I'm not going to give this goal. And there was no foul there. He didn't give a foul initially. You could say he let play go on and try to play the advantage, but if you're doing that, then it shows that it's not the kind of a clear and obvious error that VAR would want to overturn. So for me, that was clearly a goal and it should have stood. But even when we conceded, so immediately after that, I knew we were going to concede. It's just one of those things where bad news kind of comes in pairs, and it came after, and they scored. It was a poor bit of defending from Victor Lindelof. People have pointed out to me that Marcus Rashford could have made more of an effort to try and cover the space into the box. But for me, looking at the frames before and after, I don't think Rashford gets there even at full sprint. Son is obviously a pacey player. And given that, I think that's primarily Lindelof making that weird jumping motion that led to the goal being conceded. But I never thought we were going to lose the game. I immediately after, I thought, okay, worst case scenario, 1-1 draw. And when we got into the second half, so the first half was entirely even. We got to the second half, and we played them off the park after that. That was the best half of football we've played probably in 6 months. And it was just great to see. And I would say the two architects of it were Paul Pogba, who I criticize a lot, but he was fantastic, and Edinson Cavani, who showed the classic number 9 runs that Ollie pointed out after the match that ultimately led to us getting the second goal, and then the second goal brought them forward, and then that created the space for the third goal. So ultimately speaking, I thought it was a great result. I thought it was a good performance, and all in all, I'm just exceedingly happy that we beat Jose Mourinho. The difference between him and our other ex-managers, and the reason why I think we take such relish in beating Jose Mourinho, is David Moyes came and he failed and he left, and he said he deserved more time, but he's never been disrespectful of the club. He's never tried to kind of sully our name. Louis van Gaal has. Yeah, he's been bitter about the way he was sacked, but you kind of give him that he was mistreated at the end, and so he's allowed to be bitter a little bit. But Jose Mourinho's demise was entirely his own doing. The club didn't back him in the window, but Ollie wasn't backed in the last window, and we've seen how different their responses were. Mourinho poured gasoline on the fire and led to his own sacking, and then he blamed everyone else along the way. And so that's why I think United fans have a unique distaste for him among our former managers, and why we take such pleasure in beating him. And I'm just happy we were able to do that.
There's a couple of things that I forgot to say in my sort of bit. One was as far as the VAR decision, as we were just talking about. As Richard just said, he doesn't give the foul initially. I think it's got to be VAR getting in his head, because I mean it's not a foul for one. So if VAR is not in his earpiece saying, do you want to have a look at this? No, nothing gets said about it. I think the technology and the people in Stockley Park are sort of making referees doubt themselves.
Question themselves.
I really think that has a large part of it, because obviously in years gone by, the referees making the decision to not give that foul never question themselves. They stick with their decisions. But now they know, especially with VAR coming in, how heavy the focus is on refereeing decisions because of the VAR. They're trying to be perfect. They're trying to be robots, but it's just not going to happen. Because
I don't
this
want
game
to do a massive VAR debate, obviously, on this particular podcast.
No, yeah, of course.
From a psychology perspective, what ends up happening is when the person at Stockley Park says, "Go look at the monitor," as a referee, your immediate thought is, if I wasn't wrong, if there wasn't a chance that I'm wrong, they wouldn't ask me to go look at the monitor. So clearly, the person on the other end thinks I made a mistake, and they're also a qualified referee. So you think, okay, it's easier for me to agree with the person on the other end than it is for me to go ahead and disagree with them and make the decision to allow the goal. And so I think that's what kind of plays into that, as you were kind of alluding to. The issue is ultimately, if you don't do that, then you're re-refereeing games away from the site of the match taking place, which is why they've started sending the referees to the monitors. It's just going to take a little while for referees to develop, I guess, the courage of their convictions to be able to say, I'm going to stick with my initial decision. Thanks for letting me look at the monitor, and not think of that as a prompt to just overturn their initial decision.
Mm-hmm. There was two other things that I really, really did like from the game. The first one was the how well we saw the game out. Just before the pod, I actually rewatched the second half, and I think from the 86th minute until till the 96th minute, I think the ball must have entered our half 4 or 5 times, and it was I think one was sort of half dangerous. So the way we saw the game out was really, really good, I thought, compared to how it has been when we've dropped points against Milan and Everton and things like that. And the last thing was just one tiny piece of the game where you saw Eddie say to Mason, he made the sort of gesture with his hand, stop running into traffic, whip the ball in. And 5 minutes later, what happens? He whips the ball in and then we score. So that's just a couple of things I forgot to say.
It just goes to show how fantastic Edinson Cavani is. We've had other experienced strikers at the club. Romelu Lukaku was young when he signed for us, but he'd been playing in the Premier League for 4 or 5 seasons. He'd scored 20 goals multiple times. Zlatan Ibrahimovic was obviously one of the most experienced players in the world when he signed for us. Radamel Falcao came in, I think he was, 28 at the time when he signed for us, something like that. So we've had experienced strikers at the club, but I can't remember any of them making the effort that Edinson Cavani has to point out to the younger players, to help them develop on the pitch, not just off the pitch. There are reports that Zlatan was incredibly helpful to Rashford off the pitch, but I mean on the pitch, just taking people aside and saying, no, do this, not this. And that, I think, has been so invaluable to us. And even if Cavani wasn't performing at the top level that he is, you would want to keep him around for a year almost just as another coach.
I think that's part of the culture that Ollie's probably built, isn't it? Where he's letting leaders lead and the young players grow. It's just so invaluable to have somebody like that at the club, and hopefully we have him for another year. I also thought Wan-Bissaka was phenomenal too in the second half.
I think it again shows how good of a judge of character Ollie seems to be. Although he's been incredibly shrewd in the market from what we've seen, but a big thing about the way Ollie identifies transfer targets is he looks into them as a person first. We know that it's well documented. Go and watch them in person. He'll very much use his personal contacts before even making contact with a player. I mean, we saw that with Bruno Fernandes. He texted Ronaldo.
Herrera for Cavani.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly it. And it shows, he's building the culture. He wants, players in the dressing room that are going to sort of enhance the dressing room. He's really managing all these big egos well. Brought Pogba back from the brink of distraction almost. And he sort of knows, because he's been in so many Manchester United dressing rooms and he knows what makes them tick. So, he just shows how good of a judge of character he is and how good he is in the market again.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, as you're saying, I think every single player that he's signed, I mean, Wan-Bissaka, Dan James, Edinson Cavani, Alex says they're all really determined, really hard-working players. I think I was saying the other day, like all of them, they're right at the top of the running stats in terms of per 90, how much do you run in 90 minutes, how much do you run in a game. I think especially as I say, Wan-Bissaka and Dan James, they were right at the top. They run so much and they're so hardworking, so determined. And their mindset as well is they want to be the best.
Building on that, like you said, one of the beautiful things I think I've seen with all these signings is the ones who end up being squad players. Your Dan James, your Alex Telles. I'm sure when Telles came to the club, Luke Shaw wasn't in the form that he is in now. He must have thought, I can displace Luke Shaw and take that number 1 left back spot. But you look at Alex Telles, every time he speaks in public, he doesn't complain. He doesn't say, oh, I'm going to leave if I don't get more minutes. Even Donny van de Beek, who for sure deserves more minutes than he's getting, the signals have always been that they're willing to be patient and to play their role on the side. And I think that's beautiful to see, especially when you compare it to, say, Jose Mourinho signing in Eric Bailly, who is currently threatening to leave the club because he's not first choice over Victor Lindelof, despite the fact that Victor Lindelof can play almost every game every season, and Eric Bailly can play about 3 games before he's out for 6 months. And you see that and you just realize the character scouting is so important because people underrate it. You can be as good of a player as you want on the pitch. Angel Di Maria was a fantastic footballer. He still is. But he came to our club and 6 months later he wanted to leave. He was weak mentally. He was a snake. He wasn't interested in being there. Everything about that transfer, except for his footballing ability, was a red flag, and Louis van Gaal ignored all of them. And you see that with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He doesn't do that. We had the Paulo Dybala situation in his first summer. United were interested potentially in swapping Lukaku and Dybala. Lukaku gave his okay to go to Juventus, but Dybala came in and said, I want 350 grand a week. And Ole spoke to the people around Juventus and realized that this guy's only coming here for the money. And United pulled out of those negotiations and ultimately ended up doing a deal with Inter Milan instead, probably got a little bit less money than we would have from Juventus in the swap. And, just making those decisions and saying, okay, we only want the right characters here is so important, because it only takes one bad character to throw off multiple young players, and then you have not just one bad egg in the dressing room, but 3 or 4. So it's great to see the level of care and determination, the stewardship that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer brings to the job.
On that, I really liked the I don't know if it was a report or just a quote that came out a couple of weeks ago about when Ollie said he went to go scout a player and he saw them coming out the tunnel with a mohawk and he said, "All right, let's go." I thought that was excellent.
He played with David Beckham, so I didn't get that quote, because David Beckham had a mohawk and numerous hairstyles. But on Resurgent's point about character, you just have to look at Liverpool and Man City's recent buys over the last few years. Great characters, and that's why they've been successful. So hopefully that leads on to us.
Yeah, I think that was a tongue-in-cheek comment. I mean, I'm sure he didn't literally immediately see the mohawk and okay, I'm out of here. No, I don't think that was the case, but I think it was a tongue-in-cheek, and people just took it so literally. It's like, oh, he judges players based on hairstyles, and I'm like, guys, calm down with that. I mean, Jesus, what are you getting so reactive about? Obviously he saw the player, and he may not have liked it, but then that hairstyle was also one of the reasons why he didn't like him, and so he went off quickly. That's ideally what would have happened. But man, people are just so reactive. This just
So Hamsik could have played for Man United.
Exactly.
Arturo Vidal as well.
Yeah.
Vidal as
9
well.
goal.
Yeah, he was linked to us. I remember that. But yeah, just to quickly get back to the game, what I found funny was Heung-min Son. He falls down as if he's been shot, right? The medics have to come in. All 10 players have to surround him. 5 minutes later, that guy gets up and sprints like the Sorcerer's Stone and scores the goal. I mean, this is just proof that Jose has converted these people. If all of us have watched a documentary, right, where he says, "Oh, I want you to be intelligent cunts." Sorry for saying the word out loud, but yeah, he's just made them into dumb cunts. That's exactly what's happened to it. Not intelligent cunts, but just dumb
18
cunts.
plus, this is.
I apologize in advance for this, but I just had to say there's no other way to sort of say this, but I had to use those words. But yeah, I mean, Jose's done, right? I mean, at top level, he's done. What do you guys think?
He's been done for some time. I think the way I look at it is, and I said this at the time, it was a mistake for us to hire him in 2016, the way he flamed out at Madrid and at Chelsea. It was obvious that he wasn't what he was. And given the way he flamed out at United, there's no reason Spurs should have taken a chance on him. It was desperation. It was almost idol worship from Daniel Levy, who's always looked at Jose Mourinho as a winner. And the thing is, the people who are the Mourinhoistas of the world, they look at him the way he was in 2007 and 8, when he was the best coach in the world at the time, in my opinion. And at the time, I openly loved Jose Mourinho, but over time he's decayed from that. He's gone from being the revolutionary guy fighting against the system to the member of the establishment who doesn't realize his time has passed.
In the last 5 full seasons, he's finished inside the top 4 once. He's finished for some time. It's time for them to move on, especially.
The reason Daniel Levy, one of the reasons that Daniel Levy signed Jose Mourinho was because they have no stadium sponsorship yet. They have very few sponsorships in terms of being more attractive as a club. So they think Mourinho's a big name. They'll drive more sponsorship deals. But he is toxic, and Tottenham have one of the best youth academies with some of the best youth players in the country. And if he's there any longer, they won't get used. That's one of the reasons I was so glad when he left Manchester United, was because I just knew he was driving our youth academy into the ground, and I'm just so happy with him.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw, there was this article that came on, I think, before the Spurs game, where there's an inside source who spoke about Mourinho's time at United, where he was complaining about everything at the club: the food, the facilities, the ground, the pitch, everything. And he openly sort of said this to everyone within his staff. to the people at Carrington and at Old Trafford. He kept citing the fact that, everything's trash, and the stadium. He said the stadium's trash, and I was like, okay, now that's crossing the line, because you're calling one of the most historic stadiums in the country trash. I mean, just watch what you're saying. Look who you are, and look where you are, rather. And
sorry, carry on, Ben. I thought you were
Yeah, no, I was just sort of wrapping it up and just saying that was very good timing to release that article before the game, and I think that just riled up the fans a lot more, and they're like, yeah, that's it. And the thing about Mourinho is, right? I think you were right that they revel in the past. They keep talking about, the Jose of Porto or the Jose of Chelsea when he first came. Mate, that was 17, 15 years ago. A lot has changed since then, and he's not the same. And I think his time at Real Madrid, that was the turning point for him, because up until then, he was flying into Milan, Porto, Chelsea, was winning everything. And then he goes to Real Madrid, something happens, God knows what. Was it the media? Was it the fan base? Was it the players? Was it the club? Was it Perez himself? No idea. Comes back, he's cynical, he's just boring, grumpy all the time, and you could see it. And I was excited when he first came to United, but yeah, I think I was aware of the red flags as well. But I thought, the pros outweigh the cons slightly, and yeah, but glad to see that Ole beat him again, second time, and yeah, we move on.
Yeah, fair enough. Just one more thing I wanted to get his thoughts on, sort of like a man of the match, because we don't usually sort of like talk about our thoughts on that. So I thought, why not go through everybody and say who's your man of the match? So I started with Josh earlier. What do you think?
Paul Pogba for me. He was absolutely fantastic. He connected defence, midfield, and attack, and he was monstrous. And he played like he had a vendetta, and he was fantastic. Yeah, Paul Pogba.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it'd be Dan.
Yeah, for me, I think it was a bit of a toss-up between Paul Pogba and Fred, to be honest. But Fred's second half performance was fantastic. But I just feel Pogba was slightly better in the first half as well over the period in the entire game. And Pogba truly was fantastic yesterday.
Mm-hmm. United Apollo, what do you think?
I kind of had two, really. Just between Pogba and Cavani is kind of a toss-up for me of who I picked. I thought both were excellent.
Yeah. Again, I thought they were both excellent. Yeah. I mean, Pogba. I mean, obviously he's had sort of ups and downs, but I think yesterday or the other day, whenever it was probably his best, or one of his best performances for Man United. I know, obviously, Man City, when he scored a couple of goals at the Etihad, that was probably one of them. But he might not have scored against Spurs, but I thought he was absolutely excellent. Honestly, I think I saw a stat as well that he completed the most amount of take-ons that any player has in the Premier League since like a few years ago, something like that. So I thought that was amazing. But what do you think, Vin?
Yeah, just like Apollo, I was I'm torn between Pogba and Cavani for man of the match. I think both of them were fantastic. Pogba in the midfield, from start to finish, I think he was solid, driving the ball forward and just looking for those passes all the time. Cavani had an impact of his own. Mason came on, he was guiding Greenwood, telling him, don't sort of drive forward, put the cross in there. And before that, had a goal disallowed. Should have been given. Then ultimately, he scores the goal that gives us the lead. So, yeah, I'm slightly torn between the two, but I'm going to go for Cavani.
Oh, yeah, that's fair enough. And United Resurgent, what do you think?
It's very close for me, like people have said, between Paul Pogba and Edinson Cavani. I'll give it to Paul Pogba just because for me, the way that I feel about Paul Pogba, if it's close between the two, that means it should be Paul Pogba. I'm probably discriminating against him a little bit. I don't like the guy, I'll be honest about it. So if I feel it's close, he probably was the better player. So I'll give it to Paul Pogba. I will say, though, I loved Edinson Cavani's passion after the goal got struck off in the first half, where Eric Dyer who
Joe Roden.
Oh, Joe Roden, who just fell
Yeah.
over.
Wanted to kill him, didn't he?
Just went over and tried to drag him up and got into a little bit of aggro with him. And I just love seeing that kind of passion from our forward players. I think the problem with United a lot of the time is with Ollie's team, at least before Bruno Fernandes and Edinson Cavani got here, is it was a team of good boys. There's a lot of people. Harry Maguire is a vocal captain at times, but he's not the kind of guy who's going to necessarily. He's not Roy Keane. I'll put it that way. He's a strong leader, but he's not Roy Keane. He's not going to provide that kind of aggression. Scott McTominay is vocal about defending people like Dan James, and he's a strong leader. But again, same issue. He's not exactly Roy Keane. Edinson Cavani and Bruno Fernandes bring that kind of, I guess, smarts to the team, where they're willing to do things that maybe are not quite ethical. They're not quite nice.
Bring the fire.
Yeah, they bring the fire. You're not Bruno Fernandes. Let's be honest. Sometimes he dives. Sometimes he'll roll around. He'll try to buy a foul. Marcus Rashford won't do that. Bruno Fernandes will sometimes. You saw the picture with the referee made the decision, and then there's 5 of our players confronting him, and Bruno Fernandes is right in front of that list. And then afterwards, when the team is mentally upset about it, Edinson Cavani's the one who, for 5-10 minutes afterwards, remembers, hey, something's been taken away from us. We've been wronged, and he's the one who kind of channels that passion, and we don't really get that from a lot of our players. And so it's just great to see. I think Dean Henderson is one who actually does bring those qualities, and I'm happy to see him included in the team. But as far as the kind of senior leadership of the side goes, Bruno Fernandes and Edinson Cavani bring that cutting edge, and I'm just so happy to have it back at United.
It's the way that Cavani celebrates other people's goals as well. He celebrates them as if they're his own. It's so good. He's so good. I love it.
He's just one of those players, even if he leaves after one season, we're going to remember him in 3-5 years' time. When we win the league next time, we'll remember Edinson Cavani was part of the platform that led to us having this success, even if he was only here for a year. Whereas you look at Zlatan Ibrahimovic's time at the club, he was great for a year, but I don't think that if we won the league under Mourinho, we would have looked back and said, oh yeah, you remember Zlatan was integral to us doing well. There's no long-term legacy to Zlatan. There's no long-term legacy to Radamel Falcao with Louis van Gaal. But there is a long-term legacy with Edinson Cavani, and that is the development of Mason Greenwood and just the attitude he's brought to the side. And I think that's something we're going to remember.
And the fact that he broke the number 7 shirt curse.
Absolutely. This is so great to see someone successful.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt he's the best number 7 since Ronaldo. I don't think, has anyone got an issue with that? I don't think he is.
I mean, I love Tony V, but not as number 7, obviously.
Well, nobody's going to argue for Michael Owen.
Oh, no.
No. Okay, so gone on quite a while about Spurs, so I think we're going to move it on. Okay, so moving on to the second part of the podcast, we've obviously got the Europa League quarterfinal second against Granada on Thursday, which are obviously 2-0 up in, so, looking good so far. United with Surgeon, what are your thoughts on, how the team's going to do? What do you think about the game?
Yeah, so it's one of those where I think, and this is perhaps somewhat controversial given that we're 2-0 up, I think we need experienced heads to see out the lead. I think Granada are not the most threatening team going forward, and I think they'll leave gaps now that they have to score twice. That'll let us score more goals. So I think this should be relatively comfortable if we get the tactics right and if the players are motivated correctly. So I don't anticipate this being a difficult fixture. I just don't see it as one that we can take lightly. So what I would do is kind of bring in some of the more experienced players who've been on the periphery, the likes of your Donny van de Beek or your Juan Mata, and kind of try to see out the lead from there rather than just kind of taking it easy and throwing in Ahmad and Shola Shoretire. So yeah, that's how I see it. It's a straightforward fixture, but it has the potential to be a banana skin if we're not careful.
Yeah, I agree. United Apollo, what do you think?
I kind of agree with that, but only to a certain extent. So I think you can kind of strike the balance. So I wouldn't go and start Shoretire and a bunch of academy players, but I think you can afford to start Ahmad. I think you can give him his first start in amongst a team of experienced players. I don't think Granada will be as dirty as they were in the first leg. I think that will be on the ref's mind, given how everyone's talking about that. And I think they will quickly nip that. He'll quickly nip that in the bud. So I think we can afford to play Ahmad around a team of experienced players. This is, if you're going to give him his debut this season, this is probably as good a chance as any.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a game really where, after this, because I mean, if we get through, we've got Ajax or Roma in the semi-final. We're not going to be 2-0 up against them, and even if we are, they've got more of a chance of turning it around than Granada. So, I do think if he starts this season, it will be on Thursday. Yeah.
So I would agree with what Apollo was saying. Now that I think about it a little bit, that you could probably play Ahmad, but not any of the other younger kids. What I will say though is he's going to have opportunities later in the season in the league, because the way it's looking right now, I think probably 3 or 4 more wins is going to lock in top 4 and second place for us. So if we get those wins, probably the last 2 or 3 match weeks of the season, there's a good chance that we could play Ahmad in the league.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sure he can get a lot of minutes off the bench as well, because even if he doesn't start on Thursday, I think if we're still doing okay by half-time, he's probably going to come on like he did. I think he did that in the previous Europa League round. But yeah, Vin, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so we've got a 2-0 lead. So I do feel there's a bit of rotation that we can do because, like everyone said, Granada aren't the best teams, really, if you look at it. The only thing that I would be wary of is the physical game. Like we saw in the first leg, a lot of fouling, a lot of tackling, a lot of aggression, and that's something that I don't think they'll be as aggressive as they were coming to Old Trafford, but that's something still to be wary of. And yeah, it's a feeling a side which is a mix of sort of having experienced heads and a bit of youth up front. I think that would be the way to go. Obviously, we discuss the lineups eventually later. But not too much rotation, but not feeling a completely strong side either.
Yeah, that's fair. And then Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with. If we're going to speak specifically about Ahmad, I agree with Apollo in terms of that he can play in the right circumstances and the right conditions with experienced players. With McTominay, Maguire, and Shaw out, you have to think Matic, Tellez, and probably Tuanzebe at this point are coming in. So it's about who else you put around that. You've got to remember that Granada, very kind of long ball orientated set piece team. So I am worried about our aerial presence without Maguire, McTominay, and even Shaw. So I hope we handle that well. So I think we will play Matic 100% anyway. And as I was writing down like who's available, I keep forgetting about Juan Mata. So I hope he starts, to be fair, because he's experienced. And Ollie mentioned about De Gea starting last time to show the Spanish press or whatever that he still got it. So hopefully Juan Mata gets a start too. Be interesting to see if DJ is back from injury or he's just going to wait until the Burnley game. I think a big question is who's going to start up front, because aerial presence, Greenwood, you wouldn't say he's very good in the air, whereas Cavani is crucial in and out of inside our box and inside their box. So that's a big debate. But yeah, we shouldn't slip up, but I wouldn't make wholesale changes.
Yeah. And finally, last but not least, I hope everyone's not taking your points, Dan.
Well, funnily enough, I sort of agree with the consensus of what the boys said. But No, I think as far as sort of game management goes, I think it's going to be a bit more about being defensively solid rather than sort of really going at them trying to beat them 4-5-0. You know, I think it's going to be very much the same as the Sociedad game where we obviously won the second leg. We were at home and it was a bit of a draw, to be honest. So I think that's going to be and. You know, as far as sort of Ahmad starting, I think it is a really good idea, and I agree with the points that are being made. You know, if you start Ahmad and sort of have the experienced head around him, like you're talking, it might be a bit of a stretch for Cavani considering that he started the weekend. But given how he was with Greenwood, you know, when he said stop running, cross the ball, and then he scores, that was excellent. So if you would start Cavani in the middle next to Ahmad, I think that'd be brilliant. And obviously you got your players like Nemanja Matic. And you could even play Mata in the 10 if you wanted to take Bruno out. Although if that is the case, he probably is going to start Donny. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the team he puts out, and I agree with Josh. What Josh said, we shouldn't make excessively wholesale changes, and he shouldn't start everyone from the academy because it is a potential banana skin. You know, I mean, we know that they offered very little going forward in the first leg, but you know that they're going to be very, very much up for it in the second.
Yeah, for sure. I think United probably have one more thing to say.
One thing that I really don't want to see is I don't want to see Rashford start. I'll be very disappointed in Ole if that happens. We need to give him a rest when we can. I think it's perfectly sensible to have him on the bench, saying in case something goes unexpectedly drastically wrong. But in what you would expect to be a fairly straightforward day, then you just wouldn't use him. But then he's there in case you need him. But I wouldn't start him at all.
Absolutely. There's absolutely no reason that Marcus Rashford should be starting this match. You can even argue, honestly, that if he needs it, he shouldn't even be starting the Burnley match at the weekend.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, I was going to say that.
He needs a rest. It's clear. He's been managing the injury, and I appreciate that. So I read an article recently that showed that Marcus Rashford had Osgood-Schlatter disease as a child, which is a disease of the bone. And part of that is that he was used to extreme pain, and he's playing through that similar level of pain again now as an adult, just because Martial is out injured. We didn't sign Sancho. There's not a lot of attacking options. Even Dan James is out right now. And, you know, you have to admire his determination and work ethic and commitment to the cause that he's willing to do all of that. But at the same time, that also puts a responsibility actually on the manager to not ask him to do that where it's not absolutely necessary. And given that we're 2-0 up, it's not necessary. He should be on the bench and brought in if somehow Granada pull it back to 2-2 on aggregate, then you throw Marcus Rashford out there. Otherwise, you just give him the whole day off.
I mean, there's a chance now, which is very, very rare for him to have 14 days off until the next game if he doesn't start versus Burnley. As Apollo said, having him on the bench as a wild card is fair enough. Like same against Burnley. But I mean, Solskjaer's now got the chance to give him 14 days off. It might only take 7, and he might start against Burnley, and then he's got a week off until Leeds. But we should be at the point in the season now, 7 points clear in second, in a good position in the second leg, where we can manage this a lot easier than if we were struggling and up against it. So definitely wouldn't like to see him start on Thursday, and would preferably like him on the bench on Sunday.
I mean, didn't his brother come out the other day saying he hasn't been fully fit for 2 years?
Yeah.
So if he's managing this injury now, and he has been managing injuries for 2 years, and he's scored 20 goals 2 seasons in a row while managing injuries, you know, we get into the summer. If he has a proper rest and he gets fully fit, we could see a dangerous player next season.
Yeah, we've got the Euros coming up as well, so he's not going to get the rest that he usually would in the summer. But yeah, going on about, you know, the match as a whole. But in terms of lineups, what are you guys thinking? United resurgent? Who would you sort of start?
Yeah, so I'll give you my lineup, and I guess we can go on because I think there'll be a lot more variation than usual here. So what I've got is the standard 4-2-3-1 formation. I've got David De Gea in goal as our cup keeper. I've got Aaron Wan-Bissaka And I'm going with Eric Bailly, Victor Lindelof, and Alex Telles, assuming that Bailly is fit. Because like I said, this is a match for experience. I don't want to take a chance on Axel Tuanzebe, who hasn't played even longer than Eric Bailly. I know Bailly's recovering from COVID. And if Bailly is not able to play, obviously you'd play Axel. But for me, you go with the two most experienced center backs that we have, and Bailly, one who's very good aerially. And so you go with Bailly and Lindelof, Telles obviously at left back. In midfield, Matic and Fred, defensive mindset there. And then I'm going with Juan Mata on the right, Donny van de Beek in the middle, Paul Pogba on the left, and Mason Greenwood up top. My thinking is Ahmad can come on at halftime if we're in comfortable position. But you don't start him. You don't take the risk that he might hurt his confidence. And like I said, I think there'll be time for him to get his first start towards the end of the league season. Similar to how actually it happened with Mason Greenwood, if you recall, he started the last match of the season at Old Trafford. So I think you could kind of do something like that with Ahmad. I've dropped both Bruno and Cavani. The reasoning for that is Cavani can't play 3 games a week, in my opinion, at a high level. And Burnley is one where they're going to sit very deep. We're going to need his ability to make runs. And we're going to need Bruno Fernandes to find those runs. And so I think this is an opportunity where you can give both of them the night off because you have Donny van de Beek and Mason Greenwood to fill in those roles. And so that's the team that I'm going with. Very heavy on experience, multiple 30-somethings in there. Even the players who are in their 20s are extremely experienced, like Paul Pogba and Donny van de Beek and Victor Lindelof. So, yeah, I would go with a very experienced, strong side to kind of see out the match.
Isn't there the sort of problem that Paul Pogba has started the last 3-4 games now, and he's just coming back from injury too. So we
You are
want to give
absolutely right. But what I will say about that is something that I've said on previous pods is that I view Paul Pogba as someone who's 99.99% leaving at the end of the season. So I have zero regard for his long-term well-being. Whereas Bruno Fernandes, I view as somebody who is an asset to the club for the next 5 years. And so I'm trying to protect Bruno. When it comes to Paul Pogba, if he's shattered and running on fumes at the end of the season and can't perform at the Euros, I don't really care for France, and I don't particularly care for Paul Pogba's future, independent of the club either. So I'm happy to run him into the ground. Might as well get a money's worth on that 90 million transfer fee.
Josh, what were you thinking in terms of lineups?
Just a bit different to Resurgence. I've gone for the same back five of De Gea. Oh, no, I haven't. Sorry, I've gone De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, Tuanzebe, Lindelof and Telles, because I know Bailly's back in Manchester, but just don't know what his situation is. Then I've gone for Pogba and Matic in midfield to deal with the aerial threat of Granada. So Pogba's been protecting Wan-Bissaka in certain games, and Lindelof in that little right-hand channel, assuming Tuanzebe plays on the right-hand side and Lindelof on the left like they did in Paris. So that's why I'm going with Pogba and Matic, with Donny ahead of them. And then I've gone for a lot of question marks here. So I've gone for Mata, Cavani and Dan James as my front three, but I'm going to change it to Mata, Greenwood and Ahmad.
Exact same side as I had now.
Just considering how experienced the rest of the team is, I've changed it to, because I wanted Cavani for his experience, but I've decided to play Pogba instead. So I'm going for Mata, Greenwood and Ahmad.
Yeah, okay. So Dan, I know you got the same lineup, but yeah, what are your thoughts on it? Like, would you not start Cavani then? What do you think?
I would love to start Cavani purely because of the reasons that I stated before about how good he would be with Ahmad, and I would love Ahmad to start as well, purely because I'm sort of romanticising the game, and this could be, sort of reminiscent of, when Marcus Rashford came onto the scene when I think it was Martial was injured and James Wilson was out, and then he came and he scored 2 goals and he sort of announced himself to the world. I mean, I know we sort of know a bit more about Ahmad, but I don't know, just sort of the romantic in me wanted sort of that sort of thing to happen, to be honest. Aside from that, I haven't really got anything different to say to what both Josh and Resurgence said, to be honest. I mean, we have the same side, needs to be defensively solid. I would definitely start Pogba and Matic in midfield, especially if you're dropping Bruno Fernandes, because if you're losing Bruno Fernandes' creativity and his goals, you sort of do need to fill him for that. And Paul Pogba's the next best thing in terms of creativity.
Yeah, I think if you start in Donny van der Beek as well, you need another sort of creative in there as well. Like normally it'd be Mata, but I'm not sure because he hasn't played in months, and it's obviously a problem with his mother as well. Because is it too soon? I'm not sure, but is he fit to start physically as well? I don't know, but I think ideally if we can start Mata, then I think we should.
Was he on the bench versus Spurs, Mata?
I think so. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think another nice scenario for Juan Mata would be, do you remember when Dan James made his debut against Chelsea last season? He scored and his dad had just died, and you saw in his celebrations sort of everything coming out of him. I would love Mata to play, and then a similar sort of thing happen for him. I just think that'd be an excellent scenario.
I just checked, and Mata was on the bench against Spurs.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that sort of shows that he's right back in contention for at least minutes, whether the starting place or not. He's in contention. But United Apollo, thoughts on the lineup?
Just very much along the same lines. I think the back five kind of picks itself. And then I think the only real question for me is what you do about Ahmad. And I think I would start him in this game. That would be my choice. I think it's probably right to give Cavani a rest, given his age and the regularity of the games. So I play Greenwood up front, and I would give Ahmad his first start alongside an experienced team. So you can't. So I realise I said Greenwood, but everybody else, you need to surround him with experience to guide him through the game.
Would you start Matic and Fred as the pivot? Or?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it always sort of worries me because Matic and Fred, I don't know. Whenever they play, they just seem to play poorly. I think.
I agree.
Yeah, the balance they give is on paper looks quite good because you got Matic. I've said it before, but Matic quite physical, and then you got Fred who's not so physical. Fred can sometimes be sort of iffy on the ball, and then Matic really composed. So they sort of eliminate each other's weaknesses. But
they kind of cover each other's space too much because Fred is always on the left side when he plays with McTominay, and that's where Matic plays because he's obviously left-footed. So I just think Matic and Pogba for this, for me, taller, can protect the back four with aerial ability, and if Pogba needs to come off at half-time and the game's wrapped up, bring him off. Because I care about his physical well-being.
Yeah. So finally, Vin hasn't gone yet. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of pretty much what everyone has said. So I'm going to go with David De Gea in goal, Wan-Bissaka, Tuanzebe, and Loftus. I just feel that even though Bailly is back in Manchester, I just feel he's not going to be fit enough to start the game. So I think Tuanzebe, I think this is a good chance for him to sort of get some game time, get a feel of where he is, so that Solskjaer also gets to see where he is, how does he adapt, and then he can decide what to do with him in the summer and then for the next season. And then the midfield, I'm going to go with Matic and Fred. I know it's not the best, it's not the most dynamic, creative pivot, but given the fact that we don't have McTominay, he's suspended, and I'd like to rest Paul Pogba because unlike Resurgent, I am looking at his fitness and I'm eyeing at the Europa League finals because if anything happens, he gets injured, he's going to be out for the next 2-3 weeks, and that could potentially cost us the Europa League, the semi-finals or the final once we get through. So for that reason, I don't care what he does in the Euros, honestly. And if he leaves in the summer, fine. But until the Europa League final happens, he's our player. And so we got to look at him in the best way possible.
What I said is getting a little bit misconstrued here. What I'm at is I don't care about Paul Pogba's long-term well-being. I obviously do care about what he does in the United shirt. And so I'm looking at it from, he's unlikely to get injured if he plays another game. So I from that perspective that he's fit to play. The concern with Bruno Fernandes is that if you play him 60 games a season, you might burn him out for the rest of his career.
Yeah,
So what
obviously.
I'm trying to say is that with Paul Pogba, I don't care about burning him out for the rest of his career because that's not going to be at our club.
Right. Yeah, no, I get that, but like just for like from a short term perspective, I would sort of manage him carefully because we've seen whenever he gets injured, he's out for a long period of time, and we can't afford that right now. So just for that reason, I think I would sit him out if needed at halftime. If you need someone to get him on for like to score goals, you get Paul Pogba on for Fred eventually, and then the front four, and then Van de Beek obviously in the number 10 role. I've gone for Mata on the left, Ahmad on the right, and Greenwood up top. I feel it's Ahmad's ready for a start. I feel this game is ideal, I think, for him to get as many minutes as possible. Hopefully plays the entire 90. And as for him playing the Premier League, I don't think Oli takes that risk. I don't think Ahmad starts in the Premier League. Maybe he comes on as a substitute for 20, 30 minutes, but giving a Premier League start, I don't think that happens this season. So yeah, that's a lineup I would go for.
Vin, it's one of those situations where I don't think Ahmad's going to get a Premier League starting as Burnley. What I'm trying to suggest is in the last 2 games, for example, we need 5 wins right now to mathematically seal second place. That would mean the last 2 matches of the season, hypothetically, if we don't drop any more points than Leicester do the rest of the way,
right,
or Spurs or Chelsea or whatever, right? If we match their results until game week 36, then in 37 and 38, it's a free hit. The league result doesn't matter. So at that point, you can use it as an expanded training exercise and play him the exact way Ollie did with Mason Greenwood getting his first start on the last match of the 18-19 season.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a possibility. I think who are we playing the last 2 games? I know we're playing Wolves at last game of the season.
Fulham.
Fulham. Okay, yeah. So yeah, Wolves and Fulham, you could say, yeah, those are 2 games where you could probably get some time. You could probably start even. But yeah, I think for this one, I think he's ready for this one. I think he should start this one.
Do you guys have, like, if Donny doesn't start on Thursday, I know we on Twitter like to say, oh, let's not be reactionary. Let's not, Ollie's the manager. If he doesn't start on Thursday, I'm starting to get really worried that he doesn't, because this is a perfect game for him to start in. Surely he has to start.
I think he'll start. I definitely think he'll start.
I think the reason why he might not start, and even though I predicted in my team that I want him to start, is that Ollie might go with Bruno Fernandes. He might not rest him. And I think the reason for that is simply that he's so vital to our team and that leadership I was talking about earlier. In a pivotal match, Ollie might just decide, I don't want to take the chance of being without Bruno. And while that's understandable, it doesn't necessarily create the best circumstance for Donny to thrive in. The reason why I'm not worried long term is because with Donny van de Beek, I know that he was brought in with perspective of Paul Pogba potentially leaving the club. And if you look at the transfer rumors right now, we're being linked with Jadon Sancho and Declan Rice. And if those 2 players come in, now you have somebody who can do more defending, so you can play a more attacking 8. And then additionally, with Jadon Sancho bringing creativity from a wide position, you would have the ability to play somebody who makes the runs rather than is making the pass in that role. So I think the way the club is looking at this is Donny van de Beek is taking time this season to adapt. The reason why I'm not worried is I compare it to Pep Guardiola and João Cancelo last season. He paid 60 million for Cancelo and he barely played. And people said, oh, look at what Pep's doing. He's wasting 60 million on another fullback. And this year, he's arguably been the best fullback in the league alongside Luke Shaw. And the reason why that happened is he gave him a year to adapt to their way of playing the game. When Cancelo arrived from a Juventus side that wasn't playing the same way that Guardiola's team does. And what's happening now with United and Donny van de Beek is he's arrived from a very possession-heavy Ajax side that plays that Dutch total football concept. And instead now, the thing that you're taught at Ajax is don't lose possession of the ball. So if you look at Donny's passing, a lot of the times what will happen is Donny will look up, he'll see 2 runners that are making a run, what Bruno Fernandes would do is ping the ball over the top and say, okay, let's see if Rashford can get on the end of it. But Rashford only gets on the end of it about 3 in 10 times. And the other 7 times, Bruno gives away possession, which is fine because that's the way that we play. But Donny wasn't taught to play that way. At Ajax, he was taught, don't give up control of the ball, play the safer pass, make a run, someone will find you. And so what Donny van de Beek is doing is different to the wavelength that the rest of the players are on for us. And I think with a year of adaptation behind him, he'll be in a position to play more how we play. And we, on the other hand, also will have adapted a little bit to how he plays. And so I think with Donny van de Beek, I'm not worried about whatever happens. If he doesn't play a minute between now and the end of the season, I'm not worried. The time I'll be worried with Van de Beek is if he's playing similar amounts of minutes next season.
Yeah.
I think I think it's reassuring as well that a lot of the noise coming out of this really is from crap journalists and people on Twitter saying, why isn't he playing? Why did you spend 40 million on a player that's hardly playing? Whereas when Donny came in, he himself said, I know I'm starting from zero. And the reports came out last week saying Donny knew that he came in and he knew that Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba would both be hard to dislodge. He knew that coming into the club. I don't think Donny had any qualms about that. Oh, he obviously wants to play more minutes, but he definitely understands why he's in the situation that he's in. And his management, I don't know if it was his management or someone else came out saying he's never one to shy away from a challenge. So I completely agree with what Resurgence said. I think we'll definitely see a different Donny van de Beek next season, especially if we sign a defensive-minded midfielder.
I just want to know with these journalists what goes through their head. It's obviously clearly biased that Man City paid £35 million for Nathan Ake, another Dutch international, and he doesn't get in their team at all. You have Naby Keita, who went to Liverpool for $60 million. He's been there for years now, and he can't get in the team even when he's fit. When he plays, he's shit. And somehow you have journalists not bringing attention to that. You have Nicolas Pepe at Arsenal, £72 million, one of the most expensive signings in Premier League history. And he's missing out on places in the team to Willian half the time. And journalists don't bring attention to that. But somehow the journalists are worried about the fact that Donny van de Beek can't get in the team ahead of Paul Pogba and Bruno Fernandes, 2 of the best players in the world. Meanwhile, you have all of these players who are missing out on, who were as expensive or more, who are missing out on positions in similar level teams, and they don't say anything about that. It's shambolic journalism. It just goes to show the media have an anybody but United agenda, and that agenda fuels everything that they do. There's very few honest journalists left. You have the likes of Henry Winter, but for every Henry Winter, you have a little rat like Duncan Castles or a weasel like Mark Ogden.
Yeah, just on that. And the reason why that happens is because of 2 words, and that's Manchester United. Because every journalist out there knows when you write a story about Manchester United, you are going to get a lot of clicks. You're going to get a lot of views on that article. So it's easy for any journalist to write up anything about a particular player, in this case, Donny van de Beek, not getting game time. Let's make controversy out of it. People are going to read because everyone knows United has one of the biggest fan bases in the world, and everyone, at least half of them, are going to read that article, and they're going to spew arguments. They're going to cause debates within the fan base. If you think about it, it's kind of smart from a journalist point of view if you want to get views, but otherwise, I think it's pure bullshit.
We're seeing a prime example of it now. We know which journalists to trust with the Edison Cavani stuff. We know the situation that it's about his family and he's waiting and he will decide this month. But yet there's still journalists who are trying to spin it on, does he trust Ollie? Does he want more money? Does he and stuff like this? And it's just so false. The reason, we know the reasons why, but yet they still try and twist it. Back to Donny, I think he could play maybe in that Pogba position. If he's not playing number 10, he could play in the Pogba position that he played against Spurs, which was kind of on the left, off the right, around Bruno, around whoever's on the wings, on the opposite wing. So yeah. I just want to watch him play football. I really do.
Yeah, I wasn't that bothered this season because I knew the season was going to be about integrating to United, adapting to our style of football, and that takes time. I can only point you to Timo Werner and Kai Havertz, and if you don't manage, that's a classic case where you don't manage players coming from foreign leagues properly, they're going to go out of form, they're going to lose confidence, and they're going to not play like how they have. And that's the case. And I think Ollie's done really well in terms of managing Donny, because he understands that if you just throw him out there and if he doesn't perform, the fan base is going to suck him up and he's going to lose confidence. So I think he's done well so far, but I do expect him to see a lot more next season. Like Josh said, probably in that number 8 sort of role where Pogba used to play, that sort of the creator along with Bruno. I think that's a role that he can play. And I think having a defensive midfielder, like a proper number 6, also helps. It also facilitates Donny in a better way. So I hope we get to see that next season. But yeah, I definitely saw it in the number 10 this game.
Yeah, I think next season is going to be a massive season for Donny van de Beek, because obviously, as I was saying earlier, you need the right players around him, and we just don't have many of them, because you've got Juan Mata, who's pretty much the only wide creative in the squad, and then you've got poor Pogba, who needs to be, sort of behind him and getting the ball to him, and they're the only 2 players really that can play those roles. You need those 2 roles when you play for Donny van de Beek. So I think if we get Sancho next season, especially if we keep Mata, if we get Sancho, I think him playing with Donny van de Beek will be it'd be class. I think they'll play really well together. And if we can get another Paul Pogba type of player, maybe Pogba's probably going to leave, but if we can get maybe even 2 players like him who can really progress the ball forward well, I think it'll really work. But yeah, moving on to predictions. Josh, what do you think?
I'm going to go with 4-0 Manchester United.
Someone was going to say it. I had a feeling.
I like it. Dan?
I'm going to go for a scrappy 1-0 win.
Fair enough. Vin?
2-0. So I'm going to go for another 2-0 win. So 4-0 on the aggregate.
United Apollo?
2-0 as well. I think when you have the team that we're going to play, it's not exactly our first choice team, so I think it'll be quite scrappy, but we have enough quality to win the game. So 2-0.
Finally, United resurgent.
I'm going to go with another 3-1 win for United. I think they'll leave too many gaps on the counter-attack trying to get those 2 goals, and we'll be able to take advantage of it with our quality up top. I think we'll see Mason Greenwood on the score sheet. I think Ahmad will score whether he starts or is off the bench. And I'll say Donny van de Beek with a 3rd one.
That'd be nice.
You think we'll concede?
I do. I think that over 180 minutes against a team that pumps in as many set pieces as we saw Granada do in the first leg, I think
especially without Maguire as well.
Without Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay, at some point somebody is going to do something stupid and they're going to score off of a set piece. It might even be a late consolation goal. I don't know. But
and with David De Gea in goal as well, he's not coming to claim it. I don't know why they think about this.
Exactly. So there's going to be a cross that comes in and Eric Bailly is going to pass it to their forward, or there will be a corner, and on the corner somehow Eric Bailly is going to head it out, and then Matic will play it backwards to Fred, and then Fred will play a ball that they latch onto and score. Something stupid is going to happen. Yeah. It's going to be a good goal. It's going to be us screwing up, but I think there will be a goal for them.
I don't know if I'm reading too much into all these comments about the goalkeeper situation the other day, but I don't think it's guaranteed De Gea starts. If he does, fair enough, but he seemed very, I don't know, it was weird.
I didn't see this.
If Dean Henderson loses position in the Premier League after the way he's been performing, that's going to be a massive black mark against Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He was fantastic.
Yeah. I think he meant, the way I was reading it was Henderson's going to be his goalkeeper for the rest of the season. I don't know. I just felt it was just before the match. I just felt confident in it. I don't know why.
I think David starts for the cup games. I don't think Ole is.
You got to put him in the shot window, ain't you? You have to put him in the shot window at some point.
You have to play him. And plus, I don't think Solskjaer is just gonna ostracize David just like that out of the squad, not give him any game time whatsoever. So
yeah, my
I think he can play the cup games. Yeah.
my expectation would be here, take this Europa League trophy, and now goodbye.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up. It's been good. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'd say it always helps out, and we'll see you very soon.
And if you made it this far, one more quick thing. If you're listening on any of the audio platforms, please go ahead and follow us.
Oh, yes, please.
Now.
Yeah.
We're out on
Spotify.
Spotify. We're out on Spotify. We're out on iHeartRadio.
That's you, Mr. Santos.
Fucking
We're out on a lot of audio platforms. So please go on and check us out.